that they had called and talk to the soldiers' families and confirm their names and their regiment. So we have a lot of evidence against especially this regiment. And this is the regiment we know the high commanders were here on Jablonska Street.
Down there.
Exactly,
House, yeah.
in the house. So we can definitely track a lot of war crimes back to this group of soldiers. And this picture was taken here on this street.
Do you know who took these pictures? How did they do it?
So the ones we're looking at now are from security cameras from Ukrainian houses. They went through and destroyed as many as they could find, but they either didn't disable them properly or didn't find a lot of them. We also have a lot of photograph and video from brave people who would, instead of hiding in the basement, go up to the second story of their house and take photos and videos.
Amazing.
So
Were they? Did you say that the regiment was a paratrooper regiment?
yes.
No,
And on the back of
294th?
234th on the back
34th.
of the picture.
That's
you can see.
VDV, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. VDV, whatever, it's for paratroopers.
234th. Paratrooper.
Yeah.
So there were some Ukrainian men who volunteered at the beginning of the full-scale invasion. So they weren't really like trained soldiers. They had just volunteered, and they were the ones manning these checkpoints here. So that was back in February, like 27th, 28th. When the second wave of Russians came through, they took off their insignia or anything, and they became non-combatants. They were hiding in a house down the street. We passed it actually. I haven't figured out exactly which one, so I didn't point it out. But this is a picture of 9 men. 7 of them were executed here. We'll go and see that. But yeah, this picture was taken from security camera, and you can see by this wood here, it's actually this house right over there with the Ukrainian flag. The Ukrainian flag shows where a lot of Russian soldiers came on March 3rd when the occupation began. And luckily there were a lot of security cameras there, so we have a lot of footage, even audio that shows them talking to each other, saying the names of their commanders, not their real names, but their soldier
signs,
names,
yeah.
call signs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so looking at the picture of these men, as I said, 7 of them were executed, but actually 8 of them were shot. 1 survived. He was shot in the stomach, on the side, and he fell down and pretended to be dead. They went through, and anyone who was only wounded, they shot them again to make sure they were dead, but he pretended to be dead and even held his breath so they wouldn't know. And then he survived. He waited until the coast was clear, and he went down into one of these houses over here where they took him in. And later that day, the Russian soldiers were going through and checking again for men and found him, and he was wounded. So they took him back to this building because this was a hospital, and they treated the wounds that they had just given him when they tried to execute him, because they didn't know he was one of these former Territorial Defense. So because of his testimony, we have a lot of first-hand accounts of these executions.
So they released him after they treated him.
Because
at some
they
point.
didn't
Yeah,
know.
so-
They thought he was just a civilian.
Thank God.
Yeah. Imagine how terrifying that must be when they led him back into the building he just escaped from.
Those are pictures if you want to see them.
And I'll just show you now since we're sitting. So in a moment, we're going to go around the side of this building to where the most obvious executions happened. Most of the people they executed had their hands tied behind their backs. They were also stripped half naked for some reason, maybe for torture or humiliation or something like that. I'm gonna show you these pictures now. but you can look at them more later. Content warning, this is really horrible stuff. So they were executed